This ship went from serving in World War II and even receiving 2 battle stars to operating as a cargo ship. Let's look into the story of the LeLievre Tregurtha. In 1942, hull number 4378 was laid down as the Mobile Oil at Bethlehem Shipbuilding and Dry Dock in their Sparrows Point Yard in Maryland. But while the vessel was just partially completed, the contract would be taken hold of by the Maritime Commission. The Mobile Oil was renamed Samoset and launched on June 25, 1942. The Samoset was a T3SA1 oiler measuring 501 feet in length, 68 feet in width, and 30 feet in depth. The vessel featured 40 tanks capable of carrying up to 134,000 barrels of oil, 8 centerline and 16 port and starboard wing tanks, and an impulse reaction type cross-compound steam turbine engine capable of producing 7,700 horsepower. On Christmas Eve in 1942, the Samoset was acquired by the U.S. Navy and renamed the USS Chiwawa. On February 13, 1943, the ship was deployed out of Norfolk to load oil at Aruba. When the ship returned on February 25, 1943, she would join a convoy headed to Casablanca, Morocco, which would sail on the 4th of March. But east of the Azores, the convoy was attacked by a wolf pack of U-boats. 4 ships would be lost before aircraft from Port Liati, Morocco, would drive the U-boats away. The rest of the convoy would arrive safely on March 21, 1943. Throughout the rest of the war, the USS Chiwawa would sail with several more convoys, in addition to also serving on the east coast of the U.S. as an oiler. On July 18, 1945, the ship would be transferred to the Pacific Fleet after receiving a refit at the Norfolk Navy Yard. 2 months later, the USS Chiwawa would be present when Japan surrendered to the U.S. on September 2, 1945. But on May 6, 1946, the ship was decommissioned. The USS Chiwawa would receive 2 battle stars for her service. Subsequent to her decommissioning, the Chiwawa was sold to the city's Oil Service Company of New York in 1947, where she would serve ports in the U.S. East Coast. But on February 12, 1960, the Chiwawa's career would change dramatically. The Cleveland Cliffs Steamship Company would purchase the vessel to convert her into a Great Lakes bulk freighter. This practice was not uncommon, as several vessels from World War II had been converted into Great Lakes freighters during the Korean War, when the shipyards on the Great Lakes were full and companies were looking for alternative and cheaper ways to expand their fleets. The Chiwawa would be the last converted freighter to join the U.S. fleet on the Great Lakes. The conversion process of these freighters is quite interesting, and the conversion of the Chiwawa would be no different. The ship was taken to the American Shipbuilding Company's Lorain, Ohio yard, where the bow and stern sections were removed from the mid-body of the vessel, which would be scrapped. Simultaneously, a new mid-body was being built at Hamburg, West Germany, by Schlieke Werft. On September 21, 1960, the mid-body would be launched as hull number 554 and would immediately be towed to Lorain, Ohio, arriving on November 7, 1960. The bow and stern sections would then be joined with the mid-body, and the ship would also be widened by 7 feet and deepened by 2 feet. The former T3SA1 oiler would be christened as the Walter A. Sterling on May 18, 1961, in honor of the president and board member of the Cleveland Cliffs Company. The ship's dimensions were now 730 feet in length, 75 feet in width, and 39 feet in depth. The Sterling could also carry up to 25,600 tons of cargo from 21 deck hatches that opened up into 4 cargo holds. On July 5, 1961, the Walter A. Sterling would set sail on her maiden voyage as the new flagship of Cleveland Cliffs and, in addition, the longest of the fleet. In 1966, the Sterling would be equipped with a bow thruster and would receive automation to her boiler and burner controls at the American Shipbuilding Company's Lorain, Ohio yard in 1968. But in 1976, the ship would receive another notable addition that would cost $3.5 million. The vessel would again head to the American Shipbuilding Company's Lorain, Ohio yard, where she was cut in half. One of these sections was then floated out of the dry dock, where the new section would be floated in. Once this new section of hull was aligned with the other section, the section of hull that was floated out of the dry dock was floated back into the dry dock, and the three sections of hull were then welded together. This added 96 feet of length to the Sterling, making her cargo capacity 30,592 tons, and increasing her length to 826 feet, making her the longest steamship on the Great Lakes. 2 years later, the Sterling would again head to the American Shipbuilding Company's Lorain, Ohio shipyard, this time for conversion to a self-unloader. The vessel's cargo hold bottom was removed and subsequently replaced with the hopper hold, which allowed cargo to flow down into a conveyor belt tunnel beneath the hold. This new hopper hold also featured hydraulically controlled gates that led to the conveyor belt tunnel. The conveyor belts would lead to a C-loop elevator that would drop cargo onto a 250-foot aft-mounted self-unloading boom. Although the ship's cargo capacity was reduced to 29,360 tons, the improved efficiency would make up for the loss in cargo capacity. Also, during the 1980s, numerous vessels would head to the scrapyard due to their absence of self-unloading equipment. This conversion also opened the vessel up to the low-sulfur coal trade. In 1982, the Walter A. Sterling would be installed with a stern thruster. But on April 6, 1983, something mysterious would happen to the Sterling. While underway on the St. Mary's River, the Walter A. Sterling struck an unidentified object, holing her forward compartments. The ship was then beached to avoid sinking. The Sterling would then offload her cargo into the Henry Ford II and then head out for repairs. Just a year later, at the end of the 1984 shipping season, Cleveland Cliffs was dissolved, and the Walter A. Sterling, along with her fleetmate, the Edward B. Green, now K.E. Barker, were sold to the Ford Motor Company. The Sterling would be renamed William Clay Ford and become the flagship of the company. The newly named ship departed from Duluth, Minnesota on her maiden voyage on April 16, 1985. At the end of the 1985 season, the William Clay Ford's electrical system was converted from DC to AC. But 4 years later, on March 31, 1989, Ford would announce its intentions of selling the Rouge Steel fleet. The Interlake Steamship Company would then outbid Ogilvy Norton that April for the 3 remaining ships of the Rouge Steel fleet. The Interlake Steamship Company would then form the Lake Shipping Company, due to different unions to manage the ships with an agreement to integrate. On May 13, 1989, in a joint ceremony with the Benson Ford, the William Clay Ford was rechristened Lee Tregurtha in honor of the vice chairman's wife. The Benson Ford was also rechristened as the K.E. Barker. On June 23, 2001, the Lee Tregurtha would be the last vessel to load taconite pellets at the LTV Steel Mining Company's Taconite Harbor Dock in Minnesota. In 2005, the Lee Tregurtha would hold the title of the largest steam-powered vessel on the Great Lakes. But in 2006, that would change. On January 9, 2006, the Lee Tregurtha was laid up at Bay Shipbuilding in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin, for repowering. The ship would receive 2 new Rolls-Royce B-32 40 L6P diesel engines that produced 8,040 horsepower together. The Tregurtha would also be fitted with a new controllable pitch propeller. Over the winter of 2016, the Lee Tregurtha would again lay up at Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin, to be fitted out with exhaust gas scrubbers. These scrubbers are designed to cut down on pollution. I cover this topic more extensively in another video linked in the description if you're curious. The Tregurtha now proudly sails with a signature steam plume. As of now, the Lee Tregurtha continues in the iron ore, coal, and limestone trade on the Great Lakes. The ship is one of the oldest self-powered vessels sailing on the Great Lakes at 83 years old, just behind the Alpena. The Tregurtha displays her World War II battle ribbons on her forward cabin. Her legacy will always live on. Anyway, subscribe for more shipping history videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.